My brother tried to end himself because of women like me. I spent years laughing at men's loneliness, but when he nearly died alone, I did something I never thought I'd do. Hey Reddit, I didn't plan on posting, but the first time I understood how alone my brother really was, it was already a medical emergency. I, 29 female, HR compliance lead at a regional freight rail yard in central Ohio, 40 plus acres of steel, diesel fumes, and men hauling coupling rods in the kind of heat that makes your boots stick to asphalt. The workforce is about 90% male. Switchmen, track inspectors, brake operators, yard engineers. Guys who clock in before sunrise and go home smelling like creosote and regret. I loved that job more than I should have. Not because of the mission statement or the dental plan, because I had authority over every single one of them. Attendance flags, conduct violation, grievance paperwork that could tank a guy's seniority after 15 years on the rail. All mine. The guys didn't like me. I knew that. I liked that. And honestly, I enjoyed it more than I should admit. I once wrote up a switchman named Hal, 22 years on the rail, 4 kids, arthritic knees, because he sat on a crate during a 12-hour shift and his supervisor flagged it as unauthorized break. Hal came to my office, voice shaking, asked if I could talk to his crew lead. I told him the policy was the policy. He left looking like I'd taken something from him he couldn't name. Something twitched in my chest. I killed it quick. That's how you knew the system was working. My brother Colton worked at the same yard. Different crew, different shift. He was on the night maintenance gang, the team that inspects track joints, replaces ties, and handles emergency repairs between midnight and 6 a.m. when the main lines go quiet. It's brutal, low visibility work, the kind of shift nobody volunteers for. You just end up there because you were the last one hired or the first one nobody fought to keep. The pay was decent for entry level, about $21 an hour with a $2.50 night differential, but the hours chewed through people. Most guys lasted 8 months. Colton had been on nights for almost 2 years. He was 27, 2 years younger than me. Built like our dad, wiry, quiet, hands that looked 10 years older than his face. Hoodie permanently gray with rail dust. He used to be the funny one in the family, the kid who'd crack jokes at the dinner table until mom threatened to kick us both out. Somewhere between graduating high school and clocking his 400th graveyard shift, the joke stopped. He still remembered my coffee order, though. Large, dark roast, 2 sugars, no cream. Sometimes he'd leave one outside my office door when his shift ended early. No note. Just the cup, still warm, sitting on the concrete like a habit I never asked him to start. One evening, he swung by my office before his shift started, asked to borrow a power drill and some wall anchors. Said he needed to mount blackout curtains in his studio apartment because the morning sun kept wrecking his sleep schedule and his landlord wouldn't handle it. I told him sure, tossed the drill case on the desk. He picked it up carefully like it weighed more than it should. Then he mentioned Jolene, not by name at first, just, this girl I've been seeing. Said she was coming over that weekend, wanted the place to look decent. I caught something in his voice. Not excitement exactly, more like relief, like someone had finally texted him back after years of nothing. I smirked, told him, don't try too hard, she should like you for you. He gave me the half smile. Then he headed for the bus, boots squeaking down the hall, drill case tucked under his arm. At the door, he turned back. You eating dinner tonight? I waved him off. Yeah, don't worry about me. Gone before I could even reopen my inbox. I didn't ask anything about the girl, not her last name, not how they met, not whether she was good to him. Because honestly, I didn't think it mattered. He was a grown man. Men don't run out of options. That's what I told myself. A few weeks later, corporate dropped a men's wellness initiative in my inbox. My name listed as site coordinator. Mandatory presentation. 2 weeks out. I groaned loud enough for the hallway to hear. I'd built dozens of slide decks before. Stress management, work-life balance, feel-good quotes over stock photos. Management claps. Nothing changes. That was the formula. But men's wellness? I didn't even know what to Google, so I just started Googling. And I ran face first into a wall of data I was not ready for. Suicide rates among men, 4 times higher than women, most of them under 40, some younger than Colton. I thought about him in his dust-streaked hoodie with his cracked hands and his blank phone screen. But no, not him. He was just tired from nights. He was fine. I sat back, crossed my arms. Men are reckless, that's all. Even if some of them feel lonely, isn't that on them? I floated the stat over burnt coffee with the admin girls the next morning. They snorted, called it male ego, called me a pick-me for pushing back. I forced a laugh and swallowed it. Started building the slide deck. Stock photos of beach meditation, bullet points about gratitude journals, appearance over substance. I knew how to play that game. That night, 10:30 p.m., my phone buzzed. Colton. First thing out of his mouth wasn't about himself. You doing okay? You sounded stressed last time we talked. I rolled my eyes even though he couldn't see it. Told him I was fine. Swamped with this wellness thing. He asked if I wanted to grab dinner that week. Said he'd found a spot that did a solid brisket plate, only 10 minutes from the yard gate. I told him I couldn't. Busy. Meeting the girls. Had leftovers anyway. Silence on the line. Then quietly, yeah. Just didn't want to sit at the counter by myself again. I told him he'd be fine. He said, yeah, night. Click. I stared at the phone for 2 seconds. My thumb hovered over the callback button, plugged it in, went to bed. I met her once, about 6 weeks after Colton first mentioned her. Family cookout at our mom's place. Jolene showed up in a sundress, bright smile, and helped mom carry the cooler without being asked. Asked real questions, remembered names. She even knew the yard ran freight, not passenger, which meant Colton had actually talked about his life with someone. Mom loved her immediately. I thought she might be good for him. What I didn't notice, or chose not to notice, was how Colton acted around her, quieter than usual. Let her finish his sentences. Laughed only after she laughed first. She told a story about him falling asleep at her place and snoring like a freight engine, and the whole table cracked up. Colton laughed too, but his eyes were somewhere else entirely. He sat holding a paper plate he hadn't touched, shrinking into himself in a way I'd never seen from him before. Over the next few months, things started to shift. Colton stopped calling me as often. When he did, Jolene was always audible in the background. A TV, a sharp comment, a door closing hard. He started canceling small plans. Couldn't do breakfast anymore. Couldn't help move that shelf. Jolene needs me for something, became his default answer, delivered flat and automatic, like he'd rehearsed it. I didn't think twice. He had a girlfriend now. Of course he was less available. Guy gets a woman's attention, he vanishes. Standard operating procedure. What I didn't see, because I wasn't looking, was that Jolene was draining him. Not constantly. That's what made her effective. She'd cook for him sometimes, text good morning before his shifts, gave just enough warmth that the cold always felt like his fault. But she didn't work, and she always needed money. Her car payment, a security deposit for a lease she never signed. Just Venmo me, and I'll handle it. Colton handed it over, because he thought she was building something with him. Steady stream, zero accountability. He was pulling 60-hour weeks on the night crew just to cover it. He mentioned once that he was behind on his electric bill by 2 months. I told him he needed to budget better. Didn't ask why. She cut him off from everyone so slowly he didn't see it happening. Colton had one friend at the yard, a guy named Garrett on the track crew who'd swap shifts with him and grab a meal after work. Jolene told Colton that Garrett had said something disrespectful about her at a crew lunch. Complete fabrication, but Colton believed her because Jolene cried when she said it. He stopped answering Garrett's texts. Garrett told me later he figured Colton just got busy. Nobody pushed, nobody checked. One small lie, and a man's only friendship evaporates like it was nothing. Behind his back, she was telling anyone who'd listen, the landlord, mutual acquaintances, a woman at his apartment complex, that Colton was unstable, and she was afraid of him. None of it was true. She was planting seeds, making sure everyone already saw her as the victim, so that when things blew up, she'd have the story locked down before Colton ever opened his mouth. The worst part? Colton internalized all of it. He started apologizing for things that didn't need apologies. Apologizing for being tired, for not texting back fast enough, for existing in the wrong tone of voice. He was being dismantled, and I was sitting in my office 3 buildings over, writing people up for clocking in 4 minutes late. One Thursday around 9 p.m., Colton texted me, "You free this weekend? I want to talk about something." I responded, "Slammed. Maybe next week?" He didn't reply. I didn't follow up. Presentation day. I stood in front of roughly 30 rail yard workers in reflective vests and steel-toed boots, all crammed into the break hall on folding chairs, projector humming. The room smelled like old coffee and diesel. Title slide, Men's Wellness Week. Subtitle, Healthy Habits, Healthy Mind. I opened with my practiced HR voice. Warm, confident, emotionally airtight. Stock photo of a man in a polo shirt meditating on a beach. Teeth white, posture perfect. Zero resemblance to anyone in the room. Mindfulness can reduce stress by up to 60%. Next time you feel overwhelmed, just pause. Close your eyes. Breathe deeply. A few guys shifted in their seats, eyes half closed from 12-hour shifts. Someone in the second row had his arms crossed so tight, he looked like he was holding himself together. Someone in the back muttered something I couldn't catch. A couple of heads bowed like they were hiding reactions they didn't want me to see. Then a hand went up. Third row. Older guy. Rough hands, creased face, voice like gravel in a bucket. What if you go home and nobody would notice if you didn't come back? The room went dead silent, not quiet, dead. 30 guys staring at me like I was holding something they needed, and they were waiting to see if I'd actually hand it over. The projector fan was the loudest thing in the building. My throat locked. I had no slide for this. No bullet point. No cheerful stock image. This wasn't in the deck because I hadn't imagined anyone would say something that real in a room full of coworkers. I forced a professional smile. Well, that's exactly why prevention matters, right? Click to the next slide before he could respond. His eyes stayed on me. Not angry. Not hostile. Just hollow. Like he'd asked me for something real, and I gave him a pamphlet. I wrapped up with the closer I'd rehearsed. Remember? Balance is key. Your health is your strength. Strong minds build strong teams. No applause. The guys stood up slow, chairs scraping linoleum, boots dragging. They filed out like the room was underwater. Nobody said a word. My inbox lit up within the hour. Great kickoff. Excellent messaging. Strong engagement. Management was thrilled. I leaned back in my chair and told myself it went well. Something felt off, but the praise was loud enough to drown it. That afternoon, Colton texted, "Dinner tonight? Feels like forever since we ate together." He'd already texted me that Thursday, asking if I was free that weekend, saying he wanted to talk about something. This was his second try in the same week. I stared at it for a few seconds. Thought about saying yes. Thought about how easy it would be to just drive 10 minutes and sit across from my own brother for one meal. Then I thought about the girls' dinner I'd already committed to and the leftover pad thai in my fridge, and how tired I was from performing wellness for 30 men who looked like they'd rather be anywhere else. I replied, "Can't. Meeting the girls later. Got leftovers anyway." He typed, deleted, typed again. Then, "Yeah, it's just quiet here. Thought it'd be nice to sit with someone for once." One text. That's all it was. One text that I could have read as what it actually was. A man telling his sister he was alone and didn't want to be. Instead, I read it as inconvenience, as neediness, as something a grown man should handle without involving me. I sent back, "You'll be fine. Next time." Thumbs up emoji. That was it. Monday morning. Half asleep at my desk, eyes glazed on the attendance dashboard. One flag jumped out. Employee Colton. 3 consecutive no-shows. Night maintenance supervisor had tried calling. No answer. Address check requested. My stomach dropped for a half second, but I brushed it off fast. Graveyard guys ghost shifts all the time. The hours eat people alive. I flagged it as pending follow-up and moved to the next file. Told myself it was nothing. Wednesday, the flag came back. Red this time. Supervisor note attached. Attempted contact multiple times. No response. Requesting in-person welfare check. I grabbed my jacket, muttered, "I'll handle it," to nobody. Drove over. Streets too quiet for mid-morning. His building looked the same. Paint peeling, blinds drawn tight. Parking lot empty, except for a dumpster, and a stray cat sitting on the curb, like it was waiting for someone who wasn't coming back. I knocked. Waited. Nothing. Knocked harder, the kind of knock that shakes the door frame. Silence. My phone was slick in my hand when I called the landlord. He showed up 10 minutes later with the building super trailing behind, keys jangling. Door opened. First thing I noticed, blackout curtains still sealed in their packaging. The drill I'd lent him sitting on the counter, unopened. He'd never hung them. Never even tried. Second, his phone on the kitchen table, face up. A dozen missed calls stacked on the lock screen. 3 from me, all from the past 48 hours, all professional welfare check calls. Not a single personal one. Third, the air. Heavy, still, unmoving. Like the apartment itself had stopped breathing days ago. Sink full of crusted dishes. Coffee cups lined up on the counter like a timeline nobody was supposed to read. Sandwich wrappers piled by the trash. Laundry basket half folded. Shirts stuffed in, but never put away. A list on the fridge in his messy handwriting. Electric/call dentist/try meetup/text sis. That last one circled twice. Pen marks pressed so hard they'd carved into the paper. A folded flyer on his desk. Community game night. $5 entry. Creases worn into it like he'd picked it up, pocketed it, maybe stood outside the door of whatever church basement it was held in, and then walked home alone. We moved toward the back room. I'm not going to describe what we found in detail. I won't do that to him, and I won't do it to you. What I'll say is that my brother was there, and he was barely alive, and it was clear he had been lying there for days. The landlord said something quiet. The super already had his phone out dialing 911. I couldn't cross the doorway. Just stood there, hands braced against the frame, watching his chest rise in shallow intervals, so faint I wasn't sure I was imagining it. On his phone, no lock, cracked screen, cheap Android he never bothered to secure. The search history was still open. How to make friends in your late 20s. Is it weird for men to eat alone? And one unsent text draft sitting in his messages app. You free for dinner? No recipient. Just a blinking cursor where a name should have been, waiting for me to give him someone to send it to. I didn't cry. Not there. My jaw locked so tight I thought my molars would crack. The paramedics arrived in 9 minutes. They took him to Grant Medical Center. I followed the ambulance doing 65 and a 40. At the ER, they wouldn't let me pass the double doors. 3 hours later, a doctor came out. Colton was alive, stabilized, but he was in a coma. Induced at first, then sustained because his body wasn't responding. ICU ventilator, feeding tube. The doctor said, guarded prognosis, and we'll know more in 72 hours. I just kept thinking about the drill on his counter and the curtain still sealed in plastic. When it hit me, really hit me, something locked into place behind my ribs. Then Jolene showed up, not to sit vigil, to perform. 2 days after Colton was admitted, she appeared at the ICU nursing station claiming she was his domestic partner and requesting access to his room and medical information. The charge nurse asked if she was on his HIPAA authorization. She wasn't. Emergency contact? That was me. No legal documentation, no partnership filing, nothing. Visitor access for non-family was restricted during ICU stays. Jolene filed a formal complaint, posted on social media that night about being kept from the man she loved by a vindictive family member. The landlord didn't stop her on a separate front. She showed up at Colton's apartment the same week, crying, and took his TV, his Bluetooth speaker, a jacket she claimed was hers, and, I discovered later, $1,400 in cash from an envelope in his dresser drawer. Overtime money he'd been saving for months. She knew it was there because she'd watched him put it there. The ICU waiting room became its own kind of static. Beige walls, folding chairs, coffee and paper cups nobody touched. I was there every day. But word got around the yard, and slowly, guys started showing up. Boots scuffed but cleaned just enough to show they'd tried. They sat stiff, hats in their laps, eyes on the floor. One by one, a few drifted up to me. His night crew supervisor said, "Never missed a shift. Always stayed late if we needed him." A neighbor from his building mumbled, "He fed my cat once when I was out of town." Polite kid. Garrett, the co-worker Jolene had chased away, stood near the vending machines the entire time and never said anything. Just kept looking at his hands. Every story was the same shape. Colton did the right thing. Colton showed up. Colton helped, but nobody actually knew him. Just a guy who showed up, did his job, went home, and nobody knew what happened after that. An older guy from the yard, gray hair, 30 years on the rail, lingered beside me near the ICU door, cleared his throat, and said something I'll never forget. Most men go their whole lives without anyone hugging them, unless it's their mother when they're small. Sometimes not even then. A man could go decades and the last real hug he ever got was before he could tie his own shoes. Asked if that was really true. He shrugged. Depends on whether someone notices before it's too late. Then he patted my shoulder once, like punctuation, and walked away. The waiting room emptied slow. Men filing out, boots dragging, hands shoved in pockets. No speeches, no wailing, just silence thick enough to choke on. I stayed behind staring through the narrow window of Colton's ICU room. Tubes in his arms, monitors tracing lines that meant he was still here, but not really here. Jolene didn't come to the hospital again after being denied. She posted about it on social media instead. A black and white photo of her hand holding a candle. Caption, "Some pain doesn't have words." She had plenty of words when she wanted his stuff 2 days earlier, though. 2 weeks after the admission, I was back at my desk. Inbox stacked, coffee cold, a knock at the doorframe. One of the floor guys, same one I'd written up for attendance the month before. Hands jammed in his hoodie pockets, eyes on the carpet. He mumbled, "Just wanted to say thanks for that wellness thing you did." I blinked. His voice was barely above a whisper, like he was embarrassed to be saying it out loud. I sat up in my chair, gave him the professional smile. "Of course, that's what the program's for." He nodded too quick. "Yeah." Then he shuffled off, boots dragging, like he regretted opening his mouth the second the words left it. After he was gone, I leaned back and exhaled through my nose. That man had come to my door for something real, and I handed him a corporate tagline. Men really are starving for someone to notice them, and all I'd given anyone was Canva clip art and stock photos of salad. Funny how even scraps look like a meal when you haven't eaten in months. Later that same day, I passed 2 guys leaning against the vending machine in the hallway. Voices low, shoulders slumped like the machine was the only thing keeping them vertical. One of them said, "Wes missed again, 3rd time this month." The other shook his head. "Ever since his girl left, man just goes home to nothing. Empty apartment and a chair." They went quiet. Like the words weighed too much to carry any further. I stirred my coffee louder than necessary, pretending I wasn't listening, but the words stuck to me like rail dust. Empty, hollow. I thought about how every call with Colton started with, "You good?" And how I always shot back, "I'm fine. Focus on yourself," like his concern was a chore I didn't have time for. The stat flickered in my head again. 4 times more likely. I swallowed it down, sipped the burnt coffee, and told myself it was just gossip. But something had shifted. The gossip didn't feel like gossip anymore. It felt like evidence. Guilt makes you stupid, or it makes you precise. I went with precise. I didn't go scorched earth immediately. 3 years in HR taught me that emotion without documentation is just noise, and noise gets thrown out the second it hits a courtroom. So I started building a file. The landlord gave me a signed statement about Jolene's visit, what she took, when she came, what she claimed. The lease was Colton's name only. No co-tenant, no second key ever issued. She had zero legal right to be in that apartment. I petitioned for emergency conservatorship through the county probate court. 3 weeks to get approved. When I finally pulled Colton's bank statements, the pattern was immediate. Regular Venmo transfers to Jolene's account. Over 8 months. Just north of $6,200. Car payments she never made. Medical bills that didn't exist. A security deposit for a lease she never signed. Every dollar one directional. I printed all of it. I tracked down 3 people who'd witnessed Jolene's behavior firsthand. Garrett, a downstairs neighbor, a mutual acquaintance she'd told over coffee that Colton was mentally unstable. All 3 gave written statements. Garrett also mentioned that Jolene had once called the yard's front desk pretending to be an emergency contact and talked a temp receptionist into giving up Colton's pay rate. Data breach. I documented that too. During this time, Jolene was not sitting still. She caught wind that I was asking questions and launched her counteroffensive, posted vague things on social media about supporting Colton's recovery and being targeted by a family member who can't accept their own guilt, called people Colton had known and painted me as deranged, told a woman from our mom's church group that I was obsessed and dangerous. And then she called my mother, cried on the phone for 40 minutes, told mom she'd loved Colton more than anyone and that I was harassing her during the worst time of her life. Mom believed it. For nearly 3 weeks, my own mother wouldn't return my calls because Jolene had gotten to her first. That almost broke me. I sat in my car in the hospital parking garage one night and just gripped the steering wheel until my knuckles turned white. I hadn't slept more than 4 hours a night in weeks. I'd started doom-scrolling loneliness statistics at 2 a.m., like it was going to wake him up. My inbox at work was a mess. I'd snapped at a floor supervisor over a minor form error and had to apologize in front of his whole crew. I was unraveling, and the worst part was knowing that Jolene was counting on exactly that. She wanted me emotional. She wanted me to do something impulsive, something she could point to and say, "See? Unhinged," just like I told everyone. So I stopped, took a breath, opened the file, kept going. I filed small claims for the $1,400 cash and the stolen property. Jolene showed up in a black dress with a tissue, told the judge they'd been planning to move in together. Judge asked for documentation. She had none. I had the lease, the landlord's statement, and 8 months of bank records flowing one direction. She lost. Ordered to pay $2,100 total, the cash plus the value of the TV and speaker. She paid it in grudging installments over 7 months. The woman who drained $6,200 from a man working graveyard shifts suddenly couldn't find $2,100. Funny how that math works, but I wasn't done. While securing Colton's apartment, I'd found envelopes from the Ohio Department of Job and Family Services addressed to Jolene at his address. Subsidized phone program, utility assistance. She'd listed his apartment as her residential address on state benefit applications. She never lived there, never had a key. Different zip code entirely. I reported it to the state fraud hotline with the lease, her real address, and the benefit correspondence. Jolene tried to file a protection order against me during the investigation. Denied. She couldn't produce a single piece of evidence I'd ever contacted her directly. Everything I'd done went through a courtroom clerk, a public records office, or a notarized statement. She couldn't fight paper with performance. The fraud finding landed in month 5. $3,800 repayment order, benefit profile permanently flagged. Enhanced scrutiny on every future application she'd ever file. Not a felony, not handcuffs, but a permanent paper trail. I also turned the yard's data breach into a formal policy revision and incident report filed with the state labor board, Jolene's name on it. The kind of detail that makes a future employer's legal team real uncomfortable, real fast. The last face-to-face happened in a courthouse hallway, month 8. I was there for a compliance hearing related to the benefits fraud repayment schedule. Jolene was there because she'd tried to appeal the repayment amount and lost. I was sitting on a wooden bench outside the courtroom, file on my lap, when she came around the corner. She stopped. I watched her cycle through options in real time. Tears, anger, victimhood, indifference. She picked anger, walked up, voice low, vibrating. You think you're better than me? You ignored him too. I didn't stand up. Didn't match her energy. Yeah, I did. Difference is I'm not pretending I didn't. Her mouth opened, closed, opened again. He loved me. He sent you $6,200 and you couldn't name his coffee order. She stood there for 5 seconds, then turned and walked down the hallway, heels clicking on tile. Didn't look back. I sat on that bench for another 20 minutes, not savoring anything. My hands were shaking, and I didn't trust my legs. Revenge is supposed to feel like a victory lap. This felt like filing the last piece of paperwork on a life that deserved so much more than paperwork. Month 9. Jolene's final small claims installment cleared. I got the confirmation call from the county clerk's office, printed the receipt, and added it to the file. The file was thick now, over an inch of paper held together with a binder clip. Every statement, every transaction log, every court date, every denied petition she'd filed against me. All of it clean. All of it on the record. All of it the kind of boring, bureaucratic damage that nobody writes articles about, but absolutely ruins your next 5 years. I know this because I watched it happen. A mutual acquaintance told me Jolene applied for a new apartment that same month. Nicer complex. Gated entry. The kind of place that runs a background and credit check before they even hand you the application. She filled out the paperwork, smiled at the leasing agent, probably rehearsed her little speech about fresh starts and putting the past behind her. Then they ran her name. Small claims judgment, active. State fraud repayment, active. Flagged benefit status, active. The leasing office didn't call her back. She called them. Twice. Left a voicemail the second time. They never responded. She didn't find out with a phone call or a letter. She found out the same way Colton did, with silence. No explanation, no confrontation, just a door that used to open and doesn't anymore, and nobody on the other side willing to tell you why. Here's what a paper trail does when nobody's watching. The small claims judgment went on her court record. Public. Searchable. The first thing any landlord or employer sees. The fraud determination stacked a $3,800 repayment on top of it and flagged her benefit profile permanently. 2 monthly obligations she couldn't cover at the same time meant late fees, then collections, then a credit score that gets rental applications auto-denied and phone plans asking for a cosigner. And the labor board incident report? Not criminal, but it sits in a state filing system where any background check can find it. The Victim Act works until the system has receipts. Then it's just an act. She didn't get cuffs. She got a permanent paper trail. And paper doesn't forget, doesn't forgive, and doesn't care how hard you cry in a courtroom. Meanwhile, at the yard, I did something that honestly shocked me more than anyone. I went back to the wellness initiative. Not because corporate asked, because my brother was in a hospital bed, breathing through a machine, and I couldn't shake the image of that man in the third row, asking a real question and getting a stock photo of lettuce in response. I scrapped the entire slide deck, built a peer check-in program instead, voluntary, shift-based. No presentations, no vision boards, no meditation apps. Just a sign-up sheet where guys could pair up and agree to check on each other once a week. If someone missed 3 consecutive check-ins, a flag went to their crew lead, not HR. Someone who knew their name and their handshake. 18 guys signed up the first month. By month 3, it was 41. I didn't take credit publicly, didn't want it, didn't deserve it. Colton woke up in month 6. Not like in the movies where the eyes snap open and someone says the protagonist's name. A nurse called me on a Tuesday afternoon and said he'd shown purposeful movement. By Wednesday, he was tracking light. By Friday, he was blinking in response to yes or no questions. He couldn't speak for another 2 weeks. When he finally did, the first word was garbled. The second, 3 days later, was water. The third was my name. I was sitting next to his bed when he said it. I just leaned forward and said, I'm here. Colton is in outpatient rehab now. Occupational therapy twice a week. Cognitive exercises that frustrate him because his brain knows what it wants to say, and his mouth takes an extra second to cooperate. He walks with a slight drag on his left side that the therapist says might improve over the next year. Might. He moved into a ground floor unit closer to Mom's house. I hung the blackout curtains myself. Used the same drill. The wall anchors were still in the case. I drive past his old building sometimes. New tenant now. Someone put up different curtains in the window. The community game night flyer is gone from the board in the lobby, replaced by a dog walking co-op sign-up. Life moved on without asking anyone's permission. That's what life does. At work, I still run compliance, still process the flags and the write-ups and the grievance forms. But I read them differently now. Every attendance string that turns red, I pause. I look at the name behind the employee number. I think about what the form doesn't say, about the coffee cups lined up on a counter like a timeline, about the unsent texts and the game night flyers folded into pockets and never used. I don't talk about what happened at work, not to the admin girls, not to management. When people ask about Colton, I say the right things, that he's recovering, that he's tough, that I even ran the company's first men's wellness week while he was still working nights, like that was some kind of proof that I'd done my part. I don't mention the missed dinners. I don't mention the calls I let go to voicemail. I don't mention, you'll be fine. I just say I tried. And most days, I almost believe it. Last week, I brought him a coffee. Large dark roast, 2 sugars, no cream. Set it on his rehab center side table, the same way he used to set one outside my office door. No note, just the cup, still warm. He looked at it, then at me. His face softened in a way I hadn't seen since before the graveyard shifts, and Jolene and all the silence I'd let pile up between us. He picked it up with his good hand, took a sip. You didn't have to do that, he said. Yeah, I said. I know. We sat there for 10 minutes without talking. The rehab center hummed around us, wheelchairs, intercoms, someone's physical therapy session echoing down the hall. None of it mattered. He was there, and I was there, and neither of us had anywhere else to be. I still haven't told him about the file, about the small claims case, the fraud finding, the paper trail I built one notarized statement at a time while he was lying in a hospital bed unable to blink on command. He doesn't need to know yet. Maybe ever. That's between me and a binder clip. But Jolene's credit report, her benefit eligibility, her clean record, those I fixed permanently. And the calls I didn't answer, the dinners I turned down, the "you'll be fine" I sent to a man who was anything but, that I'm fixing now. One coffee at a time, one Tuesday rehab visit at a time, one silence that doesn't feel empty anymore. It's not enough, but he's here, and I'm not waving him off anymore. Guys, we are so close to hit 100,000 subscribers on this channel. If you are not subscribed to the channel, please consider subscribing. It really helps hit that 100,000 mark. Thanks for making this dream come true. My brother slept with my fiance for 6 months. My whole family covered for them. So I sold my house, moved 3,000 miles, built a new life. Now they want me back. Hey Reddit, so the Thursday I found them, I wasn't supposed to be home until 8. I, 30 male, work as a fraud investigator and AML analyst at a major bank, handling anti-money laundering cases and investigating fraudulent transactions across the tri-state area. That particular Thursday, a vendor fraud case I'd been building for 3 weeks resolved itself when the suspect's own accounting records surfaced in Discovery. I closed the file by 2 p.m., my manager signed off on the report, and I figured I'd grab those ridiculously expensive candles Dominique kept mentioning, the ones from that boutique on 5th Street that she'd slow down past every time we walked by. $38 for something that smelled like vanilla and burned down in 20 hours. But she wanted them, and I wanted to see her smile. The engagement ring had cost me 4 months of savings. Wedding venue, photographer, caterer, florist, honeymoon deposits. I was almost 18 grand deep into a future that seemed worth every penny. 4 years of my life, every plan, every dream. My brother Wesley's truck was in the driveway when I pulled up. Not unusual. He'd been crashing in our guest room since January after getting let go from his sales job at a car dealership. Something about numbers not meeting quota, though Wesley's version involved a jealous manager and unfair expectations. I hadn't pushed for details because it didn't matter. He was my brother. He needed help. Gave him a roof, meals, zero pressure on a timeline. That's what brothers do. The house was quiet when I walked in. Too quiet for 2 people being home. Wesley's shoes were by the door. His jacket on the hook. Dominique's purse on the kitchen counter where she always left it. But no TV, no music, no voices. Then I heard it, coming from upstairs, from the master bedroom. That rhythm you can't mistake for anything else. The headboard hitting the wall in a steady beat I recognized because I'd heard it before. From the other side. Here's the thing about moments like that. Real life isn't kicking down doors and throwing punches. Real life is your brain going calm, because falling apart doesn't get you leverage. It just makes you the bad guy in whatever story gets told afterward. I walked upstairs, each step deliberate. My heart was pounding, but my hands were steady. The bedroom door was cracked open. They hadn't even bothered to close it all the way. Why would they? I wasn't supposed to be home for another 6 hours. I pushed the door open, and there they were. Wesley scrambled off her so fast he nearly fell off the bed. Dominique grabbed the sheet like that would somehow undo what I was looking at. Like covering up now would erase the image that was already burned into my brain forever. My bed, my sheets. The headboard I'd spent 2 weekends assembling because the instructions were in Swedish and half the dowels didn't fit right. Brennan, she started. How long? My voice came out flat, controlled. They looked at each other. Even then, even caught, they had their own silent language, their own communication that didn't need words. That's when I knew this wasn't new. This wasn't a moment of weakness or a terrible mistake. This was routine. How long, Dominique? She was crying now. Real tears. 6 months. 6 months. Half a year. Since January. That meant it started right after Wesley moved in. Right after I'd offered him my home because he had nowhere else to go. Right after I'd told him to take as long as he needed to get back on his feet. I did the math automatically. 6 months of dinners I'd cooked for all three of us. 6 months of mortgage payments on a house they were using as their personal love nest. 6 months of wedding planning. The venue tours, the cake tastings, the invitations we'd agonized over, the vows I'd written and rewritten trying to get them perfect. 6 months of looking her in the eye every night and believing she loved me. I turned around and walked out. Just walked downstairs, past the kitchen where I'd made them breakfast that morning, past the living room where we'd watched movies as a family, out to my car. I drove to the parking lot behind the public library, sat there for 2 hours with my phone on silent while I worked through the logistics of my life falling apart. Then I got to work. First, I opened our joint banking app. 3 accounts: checking, savings, emergency fund. Total balance, $23,847. Half of that was mine. Money I'd earned, deposited, saved. I transferred exactly $11,923.50 into my personal account that Dominique didn't have access to. Not a penny more. I wasn't trying to steal from her. I was protecting what was mine. Then I took screenshots. Transaction history going back 6 months. Every dinner I'd paid for while she was sleeping with my brother. Every grocery run where I'd bought food they both ate. Every utility bill that kept the lights on in the house where they betrayed me. Then I checked our shared iCloud account, the one I'd set up when we first moved in together. We'd both been syncing our devices to it for years. Her notes app was right there. Found what I was looking for in under 10 minutes. A note titled W with a heart emoji. Dated entries going back to January 14th. January 14th, finally happened. Felt wrong but also right. B doesn't suspect anything. January 28th. We need to be more careful. B almost came home early. February 12th. Told W I love him. He said it back. March 3rd. B almost caught us today. Heart was pounding for an hour. This is so risky, but I can't stop. March 22nd. W says we should tell B eventually. Not yet. Not until after the wedding. I screenshot everything. Her email was synced through the same shared account. I pulled it up on my phone from the parking lot, found the messages between them. Nothing explicit, but plenty of miss you already, and tonight was perfect, and we need to be more careful, and counting the minutes until B leaves for work. The wedding invitations had gone out 2 weeks prior. 187 cream-colored envelopes with our names in gold script. Brennan and Dominique in a font she'd spent 3 hours choosing. The photographer was booked, $2,800, half up front. The caterer, the DJ, the florist. Her dress was hanging in our closet in a garment bag that cost $300 just to preserve the fabric until the ceremony. I'd written my vows 3 times, trying to get them perfect. They were still saved in my notes app. I'd practiced them in the shower that morning, while she was probably texting my brother about when they could meet up next. By the time I finished documenting everything, it was past 7. 43 missed calls between Dominique, Wesley, and my mom. 16 voicemails, 81 text messages. I didn't answer any of them. I drove to a Holiday Inn Express off the highway. Paid cash for a week. The room smelled like industrial cleaner and recycled air and other people's problems, but it had a deadbolt, and nobody knew where I was. That counted for something. The family meeting happened Sunday at my mom's house. She'd called from my sister Cassidy's phone because I'd already blocked everyone else. Brennan, we need to discuss this like adults. 2 o'clock. Everyone will be there. I should have said no. Should have hung up and blocked that number too. But some stupid part of me still thought blood meant something. Thought I'd walk in and they'd be handing Wesley his bags, telling him and Dominique to get out and never come back. Thought my mother would put her arm around me and say she was sorry this happened and that she'd always be on my side. I was an idiot. The living room was arranged like an intervention when I arrived. Mom in her armchair by the window, the one Dad bought her before he left. Cassidy on the love seat with her arms crossed, already looking annoyed that she'd had to give up her Sunday for this. Wesley and Dominique on the main couch, sitting close enough that their shoulders touched, looking tired, looking sad, looking like the victims in their own narrative. The only empty seat was a dining chair someone had dragged in from the kitchen, positioned directly facing all of them, like I was on trial. I stayed standing. Brennan, sit down, Mom said. That voice. The one she used when I was 16 and came home past curfew. Gentle but firm. The voice that meant she'd already decided who was wrong. I'll stand. Why is she here? Because she's part of this family. Or she was going to be. She's the reason we're having this conversation. Dominique started crying. Real tears, wet and theatrical, right on cue. Brennan, I'm so sorry. I never meant for this to happen. Wesley and I tried to fight it. We really did. But sometimes you can't help who you fall for. I watched her work the room. The trembling lip. The way she dabbed at her eyes with the tissue she'd conveniently had ready. The way she leaned into Wesley like he was her lifeline. She'd rehearsed this. Probably spent all weekend perfecting it. We're in love, Wesley said. His voice cracked on cue. I know the timing is terrible, and I know I messed up. But what Dom and I have is real. We didn't plan this. It just happened. It just happened, I repeated. For 6 months. In my house, in my bed, while I was at work keeping a roof over your head because you couldn't keep a job. Brennan, don't be crude, Cassidy said from the love seat. Crude. That's what concerns you right now. My word choice. Mom stood up and walked over to me. Put her hand on my arm with that gentle, disappointed expression I remembered from 100 arguments I'd never won. Honey, I know you're hurt. Anyone would be. But Wesley is your brother. Blood. Family forgives. And if Dominique and Wesley have real feelings for each other, real, genuine feelings, maybe it's better this happened now. Before the wedding. Before you two made a mistake you couldn't take back. I stared at her. This was the woman who'd called me her rock, her reliable son, the one who showed up, the one who fixed things, the one who'd supported her for 8 months after Dad left, letting her live in my spare room rent-free while she figured out her finances, the one who'd co-signed her car loan because her credit was wrecked, the one who called every Sunday without fail because that's what good sons do. You're taking their side. There aren't sides, Brennan. We're all family. You're taking their side. Wesley feels terrible, Cassidy cut in, leaning forward. They both do. This has been eating them alive. They didn't want to hurt you. They were going to tell you themselves after the wedding. After the wedding? I laughed. The sound came out harsh and broken. So the plan was to let me marry her, go on a honeymoon with her, build a life with her. And then, what? Surprise? Your wife's been sleeping with your brother the whole time? That's not... Dominique started. That's exactly what you just said. You were going to wait until after the wedding. We were confused. We didn't know what to do. You knew exactly what to do. You did it. For 6 months. In my bed. Every chance you got. You're being dramatic, Dominique said, and something in her voice shifted. Harder now. Testing. She'd realized the tearful routine wasn't working, so she was trying something else. It's not like we set out to betray you. It just happened. People's feelings change, Brennan. That's life. That's how relationships work sometimes. Your feelings changed into my brother while wearing my ring. Maybe the ring was a mistake. Maybe we moved too fast. Maybe if you'd paid more attention to me instead of working all the time, there it was. My fault. Of course it was my fault. I'd driven her to it by working too much, working to pay for the wedding she wanted, working to save for the house she wanted, working to build the future she claimed to want. I looked around the room one more time. My mother, who'd chosen her cheating son over her betrayed one. My sister, who'd called my reaction to being cheated on dramatic. My brother, who'd repaid my kindness by sleeping with my fiancé in my home for half a year. Here's what's going to happen, I said, and my voice was calm now. Deadly calm. The calm I used at work when reviewing evidence that was about to destroy someone's case. I'm going to walk out of here. You're all going to live with the choices you made today. And in about a week, everyone we know, every single person who got an invitation to that wedding, is going to find out exactly what kind of people you are. What does that mean? Mom's voice had an edge now. The first real sign of concern. It means consequences, something this family apparently forgot existed. Brennan, don't do anything stupid, Wesley started. I've been doing something stupid for years. Trusting you. That ends today. I walked out. Nobody followed. Nobody called after me to apologize. Nobody ran to stop me or take my side or tell me they'd made a mistake. Yeah, that told me everything. Monday morning, I started building my case like I was investigating fraud. Because that's exactly what this was. Credit freeze with all 3 bureaus. New checking account at a different bank. New phone number. I locked down every account, changed every password, removed Dominique from everything, and documented it all. By Tuesday, I'd called my real estate agent and told him to list the house this week. While he was there for photos, I had the locks changed. Wednesday, I drafted the formal eviction notice for Wesley. 30 days written notice. Certified mail with signature confirmation. Not emotional, not vindictive, Just legal terminology about termination of verbal month-to-month tenancy arrangement and requirement to vacate premises. Added a line about sheriff escort being available during final move-out if needed. Wednesday night was wedding logistics. The venue called and explained the situation without going into details. Just, the wedding is canceled. I was the sole name on the contract. Please confirm this in writing. They were sympathetic but firm. No refund on the deposit. I'd expected that. I just needed the paper trail. Total money lost, roughly $8,400. A small price to learn who someone really was. Wednesday night, Dominique showed up. I watched through the security camera app while I sat in my car 3 blocks away. She pounded on the door for 10 minutes, called my name, tried her old key, didn't work, called me 16 times in a row while standing on the porch. Eventually she left, but not before kicking the door hard enough to leave a scuff mark I'd have to explain to potential buyers. Dominique had texted 17 times asking when she could come get her stuff. I told her Saturday between 2 and 4 p.m. supervised. She could have a friend present if she wanted. I'd have the sheriff's non-emergency line on speed dial just in case. The house went on the market Thursday. Thursday also brought the near mistake. I was grabbing the last of my clothes from the house when Wesley's truck pulled into the driveway. He must have been watching for my car. Maybe Dominique had called him. Maybe they'd been coordinating. He caught me on the front porch, blocking the path to my car. Brennan, we need to talk. No, we don't. Just give me 5 minutes. Let me explain. There's nothing to explain. I am family. That's why we need to work through this. That's why I'm here. To apologize. To make things right. Something about the way he said it made me actually look at him. His eyes were red, hands shaking slightly. Couldn't meet my gaze for more than a second before looking away. He wasn't sorry. He was scared. What did Dominique tell you? I asked. What do you mean? About the wedding cancellation. His face went pale. That confirmed it. She'd called one of the vendors, probably the venue or photographer, and they'd mentioned the cancellation was already in process, and now they were scrambling to get ahead of it. Brennan, whatever you're thinking about doing, already done. I pushed past him toward my car. The emails go out Saturday at 9 a.m. 187 guests, plus the wedding party, plus both families' extended networks. You can't do that. You'll destroy us. No, you destroyed this. I'm just telling people about it. What about the deposits? The money we lost? We? I stopped at my car door, turned back to look at him. There's no we anymore, Wesley. There's me, and there's you and Dominique. Figure out your own problems. Brennan, please. I'm begging you. I got in my car, started the engine, rolled down the window. Should have thought about consequences 6 months ago. I drove away, watched him shrink in the rearview mirror until I turned the corner. The email went out Saturday morning at 9 a.m. exactly. I'd scheduled it the night before from my hotel room, triple-checked the recipient list, and read through the message one more time to make sure it was clean. Subject line, wedding cancellation, Brennan and Dominique. The body was 4 paragraphs, factual, no emotion, no insults, no accusations beyond what I could prove, just truth. But I wasn't done. 30 minutes later, I sent a separate email to the wedding party, bridesmaids, groomsmen, the people who'd committed time and money to stand up with us. Same factual tone, but with one additional line. If you need verification of these events or have questions about refunds, please contact Dominique or Wesley directly. Push the responsibility back where it belonged. I turned off my phone and went for a drive. 3 hours through back roads I'd never taken, past farms and fields, and places where nobody knew my name or my family or my story. When I turned my phone back on at sunset, I had 94 unread texts and 67 missed calls. The responses split into predictable camps. Support from people who'd known me longest, neutral confusion from guests trying to figure out logistics, and damage control from my family demanding I retract everything. My mom's voicemail was particularly memorable. Brennan, what have you done? Everyone is calling me. Everyone. How could you humiliate your brother like this? I saved the voicemail, screenshot everything that came through text, added it to my archive. The social fallout started within 48 hours. Dominique worked as a dental hygienist at a local dental practice. The practice owners were connected to my parents through mutual friends. By Monday afternoon, the practice owner had heard enough that he called Dominique into his office. She wasn't fired. That would have been wrongful termination. But she was moved to their satellite location 45 minutes away with reduced hours. Within 3 weeks, she quit. Wesley had managed to land a sales spot at another dealership a few weeks before the email went out. Car sales is relationship business. Referrals matter. Repeat customers matter. Reputation matters. When people are spending $20,000 or $30,000 on a vehicle, they want to trust the person selling it to them. Word got around the dealership about what he'd done. Then word got to customers. The guys who'd bought from Wesley before and were planning to come back for their next purchase started asking for different salespeople. The families who'd referred their friends stopped referring. His pipeline dried up. His numbers dropped 60% in 6 weeks. Management put him on a performance improvement plan. When he didn't improve, couldn't improve because reputation damage doesn't heal that fast, they let him go that fall. None of this was my doing. Not directly, not technically. I just told the truth. One time. To the people who deserved to know why they weren't attending my wedding. Everything else was just gravity. The house sold in 11 days. Cash offer, $8,000 under asking from a young couple relocating from out of state. I took it immediately. The buyers could close in 2 weeks, and I needed to be gone. But before I left, I had unfinished business. I filed 2 small claims actions, one against Wesley for unpaid rent, 6 months of living expenses at fair market value for the guest room, plus utilities, calculated at $300 per month, $1,800 total, well within small claims limits. The second against Dominique for provable shared expenses she'd committed to before the affair came to light. Half the venue deposit we'd paid jointly, half the photographer deposit, half the caterer advance, clean documentation, joint bank statements, vendor contracts with both our names. Total, $4,200. I filed both cases the same day, paid for professional service, had them served at their workplaces through proper legal channels. Dominique got hers at the dental office during lunch hour. Wesley got his at the dealership showroom in front of customers. Public humiliation, legally delivered. The court dates were scheduled for 2 months out. I didn't care if I won, though the documentation was solid enough that I probably would. I cared about the process, the certified letters, the awkward conversations when people asked why they were being sued, the fact that their names were now in public court records associated with the words unpaid rent and breach of agreement, consequences that lasted. My boss had mentioned a position at our West Coast office 9 months earlier, operations supervisor in Portland. Better title, better money, better opportunities. I turned it down because Dominique didn't want to leave her family, didn't want to move across the country, didn't want to start over somewhere new. Funny how that worked out. I called my boss on a Thursday morning. That Portland position. Still available? Regional operations coordinator now. Same office, bigger scope. Why? You interested? When do they need someone? Honestly, 2 weeks ago. They've been running short-staffed since February. I'll be there in 3 weeks. Before I left, the harassment started escalating. My aunt showed up at my hotel, then my cousin, then family friends I barely remembered. All of them with the same script. Family forgives. Blood is thicker than water. Wesley is suffering. Dominique is suffering. You need to let this go. I drafted a cease and desist letter. Not from a lawyer, couldn't afford one. But I found a template online, customized it, printed it on professional letterhead I made myself, cited harassment statutes, listed every contact attempt with dates and times, sent it certified mail to my mother's address with instructions to forward it to anyone who continued contacting me. Added one line at the bottom. Further unwanted contact will result in a restraining order filing and documentation of harassment pattern with local law enforcement. It worked. The calls stopped. The move cost me almost everything I had left after the house sale cleared. $1,700 for the U-Haul, $800 for gas across 10 states. First and security on a studio apartment I found on Craigslist. By the time I had a bed and enough kitchen supplies to feed myself, my savings account showed $1,100. But nobody knew me here. Nobody looked at me with pity or whispered when I walked past. Nobody asked about Dominique or Wesley or the wedding that didn't happen. I was anonymous, and anonymous was exactly what I needed. Work was the only thing keeping me sane. I showed up early, left late, solved problems nobody else wanted to touch. Within 8 months, they promoted me to operations manager with a 15% raise. I took it. Then I asked what I'd need to do to get the next one. 13 months after I arrived, I met Meredith at a coworker's birthday party. She was a veterinary technician at an animal hospital in Southeast Portland, the kind of person who spent her days caring for scared animals and worried owners. Quiet laugh, direct questions. A way of looking at you like she was actually listening instead of just waiting for her turn to talk. We talked for 3 hours about nothing important. Music, movies, the best hiking trails within an hour of the city. Whether pineapple belonged on pizza, her position, absolutely not, and she was willing to fight about it. When I walked her to her car, she handed me her number without me asking. Our first real date was at a Thai place in the Pearl District. She ordered the spiciest thing on the menu and didn't flinch when it arrived looking like it could melt through the plate. So, she said, what's your story? Why'd you move across the country to Portland? I could have lied, given her the sanitized version. Fresh start, new opportunities, career growth, All technically true and completely meaningless, but I was done pretending. So I told her everything: the discovery, the family meeting, the email, the small claims filings, the move. Watched her face for the judgment or pity or uncomfortable shifting that usually came when people learned your life had imploded. None of it showed up. When I finished, she reached across the table and squeezed my hand. They started trying to get me back around month 18. First came the flying monkeys: old high school contacts, distant cousins, Facebook friends from college, people I hadn't talked to in years, suddenly sliding into my DMs with variations of the same script. Your sister says you won't answer her calls. Don't you think it's time to move on? And Wesley's been really struggling since everything happened. Then came the health card. A text from my uncle on my mom's side, from a number I hadn't thought to block. Your mom's been diagnosed with early-stage breast cancer. Stage 1, treatable, but she's asking for you. I know what happened was messed up, but she's your mother, Brennan. I sat with that one for 3 days, called Meredith, talked it through, picked the whole thing apart. Mom hadn't asked for me directly. Cassidy was orchestrating the outreach through my uncle. Same dynamic as always. The family coordinating behind the scenes to manage me, manipulate me, get me back in line. I texted him back, "Tell Mom I hope her treatment goes well. I'm not coming back." His response was short: "She'll be devastated." I didn't reply. Mom's treatment went fine. I know because Cassidy posted about it constantly on Facebook before I blocked her there too. Photos of Mom smiling in the hospital bed. Captions about family rallying together and getting through tough times. Not a single mention of the son who wasn't there. Fine by me. Then Dominique found my new email address, 20 months after I'd left. "Brennan, I know I'm the last person you want to hear from. I know you probably hate me, and I deserve that. Wesley and I broke up 8 months ago. It was a mistake. All of it. I threw away the best thing I ever had for someone who couldn't even commit when things got hard. I was stupid and selfish and cruel, and I hurt you in ways I can't take back. I'm not asking for another chance. I just needed you to know that I know what I lost. I hope you're happy somewhere. You deserve to be. D." I read it twice, noted the careful language, the implied victimhood, the Wesley couldn't commit deflection, the attempt to position herself as the one who'd suffered. Then I blocked her email address. Too little. Too late. And I didn't need her guilt cluttering my inbox. Things escalated at month 22. A coworker mentioned that someone had been asking questions about me at a spot downtown. A woman matching Dominique's description, claiming to be an old friend trying to reconnect, wanting to know where I worked, where I lived, whether I was seeing anyone. I alerted building security at my apartment complex, updated my locks to a keypad system, changed my daily patterns, different routes to work, different gym schedule, different grocery store, started documenting everything in a folder on my computer, just in case. 2 weeks later, an anonymous email arrived at my work address, sent to me and CC'd to my entire department, including my boss and 3 levels of management. You all should know that Brennan is not who he claims to be. He's a manipulative, vindictive person who destroyed his own family and blamed everyone else for his failures. He drove his ex-fiancée to a breakdown. He abandoned his sick mother. Don't trust anything he says about his past or his character. No signature, no specifics, no facts, just vague character assassination designed to make people look at me differently. I forwarded it to HR within an hour. Included a summary of the situation: ex-fiancé, affair with my brother, family estrangement, ongoing harassment. Provided documentation, screenshots of previous contact attempts, timeline of events, copies of the cease and desist letter I'd already sent. HR launched an investigation. IT traced the email to an IP address associated with a coffee shop in the same city where Dominique now lived. They couldn't prove conclusively it was her. Public Wi-Fi, no login records, but the pattern was clear enough. I didn't waste any time. I hired a paralegal service online, $180 for a professionally formatted cease and desist letter, citing harassment statutes and documenting the pattern of unwanted contact. Sent it certified mail to Dominique's current address, which took me about 20 minutes of public records searching to find. Then I filed a report with the local police in her jurisdiction. Not to press charges, I didn't have enough evidence for that, but to create a paper trail, to have her name in a system somewhere associated with harassment in case things escalated further. Saved the incident report number in my documentation folder. The anonymous emails stopped, but I added one more layer. Updated my will, my emergency contacts, and my beneficiary information on every account I had. Put Meredith's name on all of it. Every last trace of the old life, gone. Added a note in my personnel file at work documenting the harassment pattern and authorizing HR to share information with law enforcement if needed. I was done looking back. 3 years to the day after I left, everything lined up. Meredith and I had been married for 6 months. Small ceremony, just friends and her family, people who'd actually earned the right to celebrate with us. Our daughter Lily was 3 months old, born in May with her mother's eyes and my stubborn refusal to sleep on schedule. I'd been promoted twice at the company, regional operations director now, corner office with a view of the Willamette River, a team of 14 people who reported to me. The salary wasn't make-you-rich money, but it was solid enough that we'd bought a house in a quiet neighborhood and stopped worrying about every purchase. The final piece fell into place because Dominique couldn't leave well enough alone. She'd gotten a new job after leaving the practice, dental hygienist at a small office in her hometown, back where she'd started, trying for a clean slate, respectable position, fresh start. What she didn't know was that the new practice owner was connected to the state dental board, and that one of the board's ethics committee members happened to be Meredith's uncle. Not something I'd planned, not something I'd engineered, just how small professional worlds work sometimes. Over Thanksgiving dinner at Meredith's parents' house, her uncle mentioned they'd had to investigate a hygienist who'd been caught running unauthorized searches through the state health information exchange. The lookups she ran were all connected to one person, he said. Some guy who used to live in state moved to Oregon. She claimed she was just curious about an old acquaintance. But HIPAA doesn't care about curiosity. I nearly dropped my fork. What was her name? He told me. It was Dominique. She'd been using her credentials to search for information about me through the Health Information Exchange. My current address, my employer, my insurance details. Everything logged automatically because healthcare privacy laws require audit trails. The practice owner discovered the pattern during a routine audit. No clinical justification, no treatment relationship, just unauthorized access to protected health information. I asked him what the consequences were. License suspension pending full investigation. If the board determines she intentionally violated patient privacy for personal reasons, which seems pretty clear from the pattern, she's looking at permanent revocation, plus potential civil liability if the patient decides to pursue it. I wasn't going to pursue it. I didn't need to. The board had already launched their investigation. The audit trail spoke for itself. Her own actions had created the evidence. I'd filed a police report 2 years earlier, documented the harassment pattern, sent a formal cease and desist, created a paper trail that showed this wasn't isolated curiosity. It was part of an ongoing pattern of unwanted contact. When the board investigator requested background information, all of that documentation was sitting in a folder, organized chronologically, ready to forward. Professional misconduct, privacy violation, harassment pattern, documented and dated. She'd nuked herself. I just kept the receipts. 3 weeks later, my phone rang. Unknown number. I answered out of habit before checking. Brennan, my mother's voice. Please, we need to talk. How did you get this number? Your cousin gave it to me. He didn't know. Brennan, please, just listen. I should have hung up. But something in her voice made me hesitate. She sounded old, tired, different from the woman who'd told me to forgive my brother 3 years ago. What do you want, Mom? Wesley's falling apart, lost another job, can't keep a relationship. Dominique's blaming him for everything that happened with her career. They're both just spiraling. And I know you don't owe any of us anything, but he's still your brother. He still needs family. He had family. He had me. And he chose to sleep with my fiancée for 6 months while I paid his rent. We were wrong. All of us. The way we handled that meeting. The things we said. You told me I was being dramatic. You told me to forgive him. You chose him. I was wrong. Yeah, you were. Neither of us said anything for a while. 3 years of nothing and now this. I'm not coming back, I said finally. I'm not helping Wesley. I'm not rescuing Dominique from consequences she created for herself. I have a family now. A wife who chose me every single day. A daughter who needs me. People who actually want me around. I understand. Do you? More silence. I miss you, Brennan. Every day. I know. And I did know. But knowing didn't change anything. Missing me doesn't undo what happened. Take care of yourself, Mom. I hung up. Meredith came into the room, Lily on her hip. Who was that? My mother. You okay? I looked at my wife. At my daughter, reaching for me with tiny fingers and a gummy smile. At the house we'd built together, the life we'd earned. Yeah, I said. And I meant it. I'm okay. The final confrontation came 4 months later. Work conference back east. Couldn't avoid it. My presence was required for a leadership summit. I made the mistake of stopping at a coffee shop I used to frequent. Old habit. Wesley was there. He looked rough. 30 pounds heavier, none of it healthy. Eyes that had that flat, hollowed-out look of someone who'd stopped expecting things to get better. 3 years of consequences written across his face. He spotted me before I could leave. Crossed the shop in 4 strides. Brennan. Wesley. You look good. Thanks. He shifted his weight. Same nervous energy as that day on my porch. I've been trying to reach you for years. Just wanted to say, I know what you want to say. I've read the letters. Then you know I'm sorry. I know I said it before, but I mean it. What I did was the worst thing I've ever done in my life, and I've had to live with it every single day since. Good, he blinked. Good? You should have to live with it. That's how consequences work. You make a choice, you live with the results. We're still family. No, we're not. I said it without anger, without heat, just fact. You stopped being my brother the day I found you in my bed with my fiancée. The family meeting confirmed it. You all made your choice. This is you living with it. I've changed. I've been working on myself. Great. Go be better somewhere else. I don't need you in my life. I don't want you there. And honestly, I don't think about you anymore. His face crumpled. That look people get when they finally realize you're not bluffing. That it's actually over. What about Mom? She's getting older. She has you. She picked you. Remember? I finished my coffee. Set the empty cup on a nearby table. Have a good life, Wesley. I mean that. Just have it away from me. I walked out. Didn't look back. The spring sun was warm on my face. My flight home left in 4 hours. Meredith and Lily would be waiting at the airport when I landed. I got in my rental car and started driving toward the airport. 2,647 miles between me and home. I'd be there by tonight. Guys, we are so close to hit 100,000 subscribers on this channel. If you are not subscribed to the channel, please consider subscribing. It really helps hit that 100,000 mark. Thanks for making this dream come true.